Good evening and welcome to the February 20th meeting of the Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joel, we have no housekeeping? Because that other one's in March, the one that's been continued? Yeah. Okay. So I guess we have three cases. I want to start with 1316 Butler Pike.
Michael, is it okay if I start with
Yes.
1234 instead?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was just handing those out. I can do either one, whatever works.
Which one on 1234?
So 1234 is lot 1 and lot 2, so it's
Right.
actually two applications all
Yes.
at the same time. But it's up to you. If I mess
Go
you
ahead,
up.
go ahead. No, that's all right.
I was just going in numerical order. 1234 becomes 41316.
Mr. Solicitor, do you want to
Yeah, I'm just
do the honors?
Paula, you don't need one, do you?
No.
Hold on, here's one.
And we're doing,
Well, it says lots 1 and 2, so.
are we doing them together?
1234. They're technically two cases, right?
And I was going to request that the board, since the properties are identical, as you will hear, that the board would permit us to make a single record and have it incorporated into each matter. Obviously, the board has to vote on each matter independently, but because the property is physically identical and our request for relief is identical, rather than go through the testimony an additional time, if the board would permit me, I'd like to simply incorporate the record.
And that, I'm fine with that. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so this is going to be two applications. The first is Butler Pike Apartments LLC. It's an application for a variance from Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance Number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700.A. The variance requested is to use a dwelling as a duplex residence with the same footprint and same dwelling. The property is located at 1234 Butler Pike, lots 1 and 2 in the C Residential Zoning District. This is also an application for a variance from Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance Number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700.A. The variance requested is to also use a dwelling as a duplex residence with the same footprint and dwelling, and this property is also the same address, 1234 Butler Pike, lots 1 and 2 in the C Residential Zoning District.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart, and I represent the applicant this evening, Butler Pike Apartments, LLC, a corporate entity that is represented by my clients, the principals, Chuck and Natalie Wachowski, who are seated to my right, the board's left. My clients are experienced local builders and developers. When I say local, it is really hard to be more local than they are to this project. They live almost directly across the street. And they have done a number of projects in and around this community, all while actually raising their family in this community. So they certainly know the area, and possibly more importantly, I think when you're talking about this type of project, they take pride in what they do. They live in the community that they do their work in. So they are always surrounded by people that know it's their project. They're their friends, their neighbors. They're always concerned that their projects look good and are in keeping with the community, which I think is really critical to what you'll hear this evening. The property that we are discussing, as we talked about, is really two applications. It's 1234 Butler Pike. In total, that 1234 Butler Pike property was about 18,600 square feet, and it is located in the C Residential Zoning District. At one point, 1234 Butler Pike was improved with what had become a dilapidated single-family home with an accessory structure, but that has since been demolished and removed from the site. The current legal owner of the property purchased the property with the intent to subdivide and then redevelop the property as two single-family dwellings. And in fact, that owner obtained formal final subdivision and land development approval for the property, and it is now two independent parcels currently identified simply as 1234 Lot 1 and 1234 Lot 2. Unfortunately, that project ended up not being feasible. The current owner is not able to bring that project to market. Quite simply, the economics of two single-family dwellings did not make sense, and he couldn't complete the project. My clients, given their business, their ties to the community, purchased the property and with the intent to effectively construct the exact same approved dwellings that you'll see on the approved plan that we'll talk about in a moment, but orient them a little bit different so that each dwelling is then configured as a duplex, a use that, as you'll hear, they believe to be consistent with the neighborhood and one that actually is feasible, so this property can actually be developed. You'll see it is not in good condition at the moment. As you'll hear, the exterior of the building will remain essentially identical to the footprint and the exterior that was already approved through council for the single-family dwellings. As we talked about at the outset, as we went on the record, because these are two independent applications, two independent lots, I have requested and hope that the board will agree to simply incorporate the record that we're about to make into each of those, and then the board would obviously need to vote independently on each of those applications after we close the record or as you're permitted within 45 days. So as the board knows, my practice is to hand out pre-marked exhibit packages. I did not print large boards, 24 by 36. I thought it was better simply to have the packages in front of you. If you'll permit me one more moment before I call Mr. Borkowski, I'll just walk through what those exhibits are and identify them for the record. Exhibit A1 is a copy of the deed to the property, vesting legal title to Tellurium LLC, who was the subdivider of the property and obtained land development approval. Exhibit A2 is a copy of the agreement of sale between Tellurium and my clients, Butler Pike Apartments LLC. Exhibit A3 is a combination of two images, the first being an aerial image, simply to give context, location of the property, and the second being a street view, evidencing the existing conditions of that property. Exhibit A4 is a copy of the approved recorded subdivision and land development plan, which depicts the structures located on the property, how they fit there, the driveways, the parking, and so forth. Exhibit A5 is a copy of the application that brings us here this evening. You'll note in that application there is additional material which really shows exterior elevations of what the buildings are proposed to look like. And then Exhibit A6 is a set of letters from neighbors evidencing their support for both this application as well as the other application that we will present this evening for 1316. Again, evidencing kind of my client's connection to the community. They own existing properties in the community. You'll note some of those people are residents of those properties. Others are their neighbors and people that live in the surrounding community and are aware of the project, supporting the request that we have this evening. So unless the board has any questions for me, I'll call my first and only witness, Mr.
Before you do that, you want the exhibits entered in the record, I assume?
That'd be great. I would certainly do it at the end.
Okay, I didn't, it's
so,
your show.
Yeah, we'll hold off. We'll make sure we use them all. I think we will, but if the board has any questions on
I just want to make sure, I got this Google Maps, you could show me which.
Sure. It's the undeveloped lot right in the middle.
Not
The
this
overgrown,
one?
nope, the overgrown
Not this
portion.
one.
Correct. Yeah, the house was demolished, so the lot is vacant at this point and has become overgrown at this point. Okay. Shall I call Mr. Borkowski?
Yes.
Is it your full name? Is it spelled for the record?
Charles, Chuck is fine. Borkowski, Borkowski.
Raise your hand, please, or do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Mr. Borkowski, for the record, can you provide your business address, please?
1316 Butler.
And are you a principal of Butler Pike Apartments?
I'm sorry, 1301 Butler. I went off the I'm already.
I thought Natalie had simply made him live across the street.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but.
No, I was jumping ahead. 1301, directly across the street.
And you are a principal of Butler Pike Apartments LLC, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what would you describe as your current occupation?
Very small, very local developer, landlord as well,
And how long have you been in that industry?
since I was 18.
And am I correct that you have a number of properties that you have developed in the area as well as properties that you currently own and manage?
Yes.
And 1301 Butler Pike, not only your business address, but am I correct that's your residence?
For 26 years.
Okay. And in relation to the property I described that's at issue this evening, I described it as almost directly across the street. Is that an accurate representation?
Very much so.
And is it fair to say then that you are familiar with the neighborhood?
I watched it, yes.
And you're familiar with the property, I call it 1234 Butler Pike?
Correct.
And can you describe in your own words for the board what it is that you would like to do with the property that's the subject of this hearing?
So, along with our personal residence, we also have a few other properties directly across the street. One being a quadplex that neighbors these. And through the years, we've raised our 4 kids there, and we've just watched slowly as people have moved out. They've either turned into rentals, commercial, or multi-units. And this particular property, we talked to our neighbor a little bit. As we know, a few years ago, things were going crazy financially as far as appraisals and all that. And then she got a heck of an offer. We had tried, we were going to take that building and hopefully try to save it to keep it as a single, but as a rental as well. It was in bad shape, it needed to come down. This developer did do it, and then we've watched almost 3 years now as it sat stagnant, for sale, no offers through the local scene. Obviously, with other developers and all, we've all looked and talked about it, and it just became an eyesore for everybody with a construction fence. So much as we did with a few other properties on the street, even though there's a lot of rentals there and all, we like it. We have a few close neighbors there. We want to stay. We intend on having our children there. So it's nice to be, in a sense, in control of the architecture and all that and have it look as a single home. And all of our rentals, I'd like to say we take pride in and do landscaping and all that. We have good tenants. So we looked at a way to make this happen as far as developing it and getting the street to look kind of how it did, but modernize it for the next 50 or so years.
And so am I correct that your general plan is to take each of the approved single-family dwellings, the exact same footprint, and convert that into a twin?
Correct.
And generally speaking, how will you accomplish that? How will the building be oriented to provide space for 2 separate tenants?
So there are 4 stories, including the basement, and we'll have the basement and the first floor be a unit, and then the second floor and the third floor be another unit with your typical, it's hard to explain, but the staircase and entryway sharing and kind of cattle shooting you up to the other.
And so from the exterior, will there be a single door providing 2 different ways into the unit, or will there be 2 separate exterior doors? To
We
the
usually
units?
do a single door, and then either as you enter that, there'll be 2 doors inside, or at the minimum, a side door. And so from the front, you only see one door.
And so from the front facade, it will, one, be consistent with the approved plan, but it will also appear as though it's a single-family dwelling.
That was very important.
And in your opinion, do you believe that that dwelling, when it is completed, that it will be consistent with the neighborhood?
Very much so.
How about parking? Will parking be available for each of those units?
Yes, one of the good things of our street is, besides a few years back, when the Antioch Church had a lot of Sunday services, there would be parking issues on Sunday morning for about 2 hours, but they've done work at their facility, and that doesn't even happen anymore. And my long way around this is if you drive down day or night, there's parking lanes on street on either side, and all of these units have their own driveways. And us, as just what we do, looking way into the future, there is in the Gardens Apartments behind us a paper road that a lot of the residents use as well back there. It's not developed, so to say, but it's accessible and usable. So parking is not an issue. I wouldn't introduce it.
And so the plans provide, there is some off-street parking,
Correct.
roughly one per unit off-street, but then your experience, having lived in this neighborhood for 20-plus years, is that there's adequate on-street parking, both for guests and so forth. Based on your experience as a developer and builder and owner of a number of properties in the area, do you believe that the single-family dwellings that have been approved are feasible for this property?
It was marketed for almost 3 years, and it could not come to fruition. And now with the environment the way it is, it's definitely not going to come to fruition. And we're trying to expedite it, A, for the neighbors, and B, for the old developers who are in a bad spot right now.
Chuck, do you believe that if the board were to grant your requests for variances for these two lots, that relief resulting in duplexes would be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare?
No, it would be better than what's there in all occasions.
Do you think that if that relief is granted, that those duplexes would in any way impair the reasonable use and enjoyment of the adjoining properties? In fact, am I correct that you have discussed your proposal for these properties with a number of your neighbors, and they have in fact authored letters of support for your project?
Yes, in the beginning, they all assumed I was doing the job, so they were on me a little bit to get it done when it was sitting. So they were happy to know that I'm now in there.
Anything else that you would like to share with the board about the project?
We hit almost everything. The only thing I can say is I know it's in the outskirts, so to say. We joke the good thing is whenever there's an incident there, whatever it be, we have White Marsh, Plymouth Township, and Conshohocken there in a few minutes. So we just, again, more than anything, want to get something up there again.
That's all I have on direct testimony, unless you have something.
Okay.
She's just reminded me that over 26 years we have watched as, and I think that's one of the reasons the singles when they were marketed were not, even in that great market, were not being bought up, is we have 309 units at Plymouth Gardens behind us. We have quadplexes. Right next to this property is a duplex. There's a few triplexes. We have commercial. We have everything but us, and I think there may be on the whole stretch of from North Lane to the Conshohocken aspect of Butler Pike. I think there's like 6 or 7 that are true residents that live there in their own dwellings. Everything else is multi-use. So, however you want to look at that, it's something that we've watched happen over 26 years, and we're just trying to make it stay as close to as when we moved in there as possible.
So that's all I have for Mr. Gorkowski.
Sure.
Unless
Well,
now
let's-
I would like to move those exhibits into the record and open up Mr. Gorkowski to any questions that the board may have.
All right, so let's start with Mr. Higgins.
I showed you this person here
To the right.
to the right.
Yes.
Did they write a letter or anything to
Yes.
talk to them?
Yes.
One of the letters in here?
Yes.
What about on the other side?
To the left is they have. We definitely discussed it with them. Did they give us a
I don't
letter?
think they gave us a letter, but they have a duplex of their own. That's a duplex that they just bought and renovated, so they verbally were in support. I just wasn't able to get a letter in time from them. But I personally walked around to every neighbor, and I got about 15 letters, and
That's all I have.
Technically, you're not sworn in.
Yeah, shoot,
Yeah, we have to swear you in
Yeah.
We
now.
can. I'm sorry, no, that's great.
State your full name, please.
Natalie Burkowski.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Marty, are you done?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. think the testimony pretty much answered all of the questions I had. Has any construction of the building begun yet, or is it?
So they've demolished, they've excavated, that being the biggest issue for almost 2 years now. It's literally been a hole in the ground with old, whenever you demo, there's nevertheless some residue left. The neighbor you just mentioned, that was one of them that assumed I was doing the work because we built all the other ones around.
Nice of an house.
And she's kind of up in arms because she's been staring at a hole with bricks in it for almost, I think it's been 2.5 years.
Okay.
So, yes and no. Some of the land development, so to say, has been started.
Okay. Any hazardous materials to be carved?
No, they did, I made sure that they did all the proper renovating and all that stuff. There are trees that were in disrepair, so to say, prior to that had been called to be removed that are just obviously 3 years worse. So with all that being said, we are looking, if we shall get the blessing, to start immediately. I have other jobs around the area where we'll mobilize and get started right away.
Okay. I just have a point of curiosity. Are there going to be different addresses for this? I know it's 1234, Lot 1, Lot 2. Will they, at the end, will each one have a separate?
Yeah, you could answer better than that.
Yeah, typically through the assessor's office, they will ultimately issue.
Oh, okay.
It's a combination between the postmaster and the assessor's office, and they will issue independent street addresses to them.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I'm surprised that it wasn't done when the plan was recorded, but it certainly will be done.
I think that from recent COVID times, I know on other projects, you had to push the postmaster a little bit because he was obviously overwhelmed for reasons. So
Yeah.
that's probably what happened is during COVID, it just wasn't a issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Aprile.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick questions. One, we talked about parking, but I didn't hear how many parking spots for each unit.
So there's
Off-street.
yes, off street right now the way the driveway's showing, we can get 4. The way that fire company or I'm sorry, whoever here helped design with Lonnie, the engineer, there's like a turnaround. That is something that we have plenty of off street as well.
Is all the
And-
parking in the front?
Yes, right now there's parking in the front, there's the paper road in the back, but we think with, we're way under the impervious, so we can actually exaggerate the driveways a little bit as well.
So you're going to
if need be.
have 4 parking spots for each
I
unit?
believe we can, for 2 for each unit. It's a
I'm sorry.
duplex, so yes,
I meant for each lot.
yes,
4 parking spots for each lot, off-street.
that's the aim, yes.
Okay. And a question for Mr. Lewis. I'd just like to know, can you explain to me what the legal hardship is here?
Sure. As the board knows, the MPC sets forth 7 criteria to go through, and the big one is hardship. The literal reading of hardship talks about physical condition of the property that warrants relief from the ordinance in terms of the ability to develop. Here, we're actually taking what's known as Hertzberg, and I know it's typically not used in a use variance case, which we admit this is use variance case, but you have a property here that, as demonstrated by the testimony, cannot be developed for the only permitted use, which is single family. It is sat on the market, approved for single families, and simply can't be developed. I think that if nothing else, that evidence is the true hardship. It cannot be used as developed, which is really what the MPC standard is supposed to get to. Hertzberg allowed evidence of economic hardship to come in for dimensional criteria, but I do believe that it is still relevant here where you have a use that simply cannot be developed because of the economics. So I would say that our hardship is not what you would typically hear. Say, I know you all have had a number of fence cases recently. I've seen you have 10 or 12 of them, and everybody comes in and talks about the physical setup of the lot. It's a corner lot. I now have 2 front yards. That makes my physical condition unique. Well, that's not the only way to prove hardship. Hardship is supposed to get you to the point that you demonstrate that the property cannot be used as zoned. And I think that's what we have presented tonight. It's not that there's severe topography or it's a corner lot. It simply can't be developed for a single-family home where it is and how it's oriented. And I think under the law that is sufficient to evidence of hardship warranting the variances that are requested this evening.
So whoever owned it, Tolarian, tried to sell it at a high price and couldn't sell it.
Couldn't, not even, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's even
But
better coming.
and this is, I live across the street, and in all honesty, it's not the most attractive project, even as I'm presenting it financially. But we happen to own others on the street, you know, it is our street and it's our business in town as well. So it's like, we can make it work real world, so to say. Is it something I went after? No, you know, our attractiveness to it prior was it was an all brick home. It was terrible inside, but it had the exterior to where we could take one and maybe rent it out and just have it look like it did. So that's where we're going. And I also, when this developer was running into his issues and the market was starting to turn downward, we had, through our other projects, you know, if we had 3 lots in White Marsh or so, I even brought builders over saying, hey, maybe I can get this lot and build you the home that you wanted in White Marsh that's already gone, you know? And what we found again is we have a dry cleaner, we have 309 units directly behind this. We have multiple rentals literally to the left and right of it. And anybody, even if it was discounted on, you know, the market that we had when it was excelling and even now depressed, they just don't want to be there on that street surrounded by that to raise their family. And it's the sad reality of where we are as neighbors, you know, on our side. So,
Well, you're on the other side. You got a different backyard.
yeah,
Right?
but there's very few.
That's a
of
pretty
us,
wide
and
street, too.
Anybody who's there has been there for a while, you know,
Sure.
and looking to stay. So
Thank you. No more
nobody was
questions.
biting.
Mr. Armando?
When you say been there, where's there? Right across the street? All of them?
Yeah, and they're like sorry, the hands, the neighbors to the right of this, as he asked earlier, I mean, they were there when I moved.
Are they a single family?
They are a single family.
So that house is a single family. How many multi-uses are there in that block area?
Okay, so I have,
Like if you just go 3 to the right and 3 to the left, are they all multi-use? Or
well,
they?
I did the street, and I say north if you're coming towards FWAT. FWAT was here when we were presenting with council previously, right? So if you're heading that direction, there's 17 parcels. All of them are either multi-units, full-time rentals, or commercial. And you might say even industrial. Which is
Nobody owns and lives in any of those houses?
To the right, no.
So are the people that wrote the letters, are they all renters?
No. There's then the other way.
Down
South of the
towards-
property, there was 23 parcels, and I believe it was 18 were multi-units, rentals, or commercial. Across the street, we're dealing with E.F. Moore, Caparo Insurance, a few other White Marsh residents as well. And then obviously directly behind us, I've said it a few times, there's 309 in the gardens. And then the paper alley I'm speaking of here, which I'm not sure if it's Plymouth Township or Conshohocken, but that was recently converted to 12 or so apartments, which was an old commercial unit.
So when you say these other ones are multi-unit, are they zoned multi-unit? Are they all legal?
Well, there's 2 different issues.
What's that?
One is they're all in the C residential class. But the other is, have they been approved for either by variance or because they were a legal non-conforming use?
Yeah.
And I think the only way to find that out would be to pull like every file on every property and see.
Well, that's what I'm curious.
Well, ours.
I don't know how they would
To
know
give you an
that.
idea, the next presentation, we own the property next door, and that's a legal quadplex that we have. And there may be, when you just asked that, there may be one that just changed hands, but I haven't seen anybody there yet. So I don't know their intentions, if they're living there or renting it out. But for the most part, anybody that owns and lives there, we definitely spoke to. And then, again, a lot of the people, there was a guy down the street, I think one of the letters is there, that he may have bought it as a duplex, and then as it was changing over, he was getting surrounded, and I think he came in front of you some years back and changed it into a triplex. So.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, my only concern is just to keep with character of the other ones. And if there's already other ones there that are legally official multi-units, then
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There definitely is a couple I found records of.
I think there's a couple that aren't, that are just...
I just didn't find records.
No, I mean, but do you think
Yeah.
people are just, they split them up without asking?
I mean, they could have, sure.
And it could very well predate the ordinance as well, in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, if somebody had converted it many years ago.
And Lennon, what we're doing with these things, a lot of them, if you drive by, they don't look like duplexes or triplexes, but through the years they are.
And so according to the drawings, you're going to have one door, you go in, and you can go into the first unit, and then go up the steps to the second unit?
They'll still be interior, like how the other units are that we own, is you walk in, and there's one front door.
Right.
And then there's still, it's say a mudroom, and then there's a front door with locks and another front door with locks once you're inside.
So the mudroom is a separating part, not the stair, not a common stairwell.
Correct. Correct.
So to get upstairs, you have to have a key to get up the steps.
Correct.
And then, or you just go straight into your house. So it's like that's the shared lobby.
And lobby, in a unit like this, it's 20 wide, it might be 5 by 5. It's not
Just in
a
there,
lobby
just enough for
there.
doors.
Yes.
Just enough to come in and pick your path.
Yes.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
So again, from what you're telling us, two different things. One, the character of the community is that it's, on that part of Butler Pike, generally multifamily. With things like the cleaners, and we approved something else down there. I can't remember what
It
we
was a
approved.
hairdresser, but I don't think she made it.
Yeah, we approved a couple things down there.
Beauty salon.
Beauty salon, maybe.
I don't think it's there anymore, though, is it?
I
But that ramp.
There's something, you got the car guy on the
Sure,
corner.
it's
To the right, I know where you're speaking. That's more,
right by Bose. down by
yes,
Bose.
yes,
No,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
down that.
Yeah, I don't think she's there.
Yeah.
But that's not residential. And then you come into sort of like a transition from that little business stuff down through a bunch of what used to be, I guess, single family, but are generally now multifamily. When I went out and walked the area, you know, you see multiple meters on the buildings, 3, 4 electric meters. I don't know how many, because sometimes you have 3 electric meters and there's 2 units because there's 1 electric for the common, but it just struck me as a multifamily area. And the other thing that I was a little bit surprised at is it seemed like whenever I went there was never an issue with parking.
Honestly, I would.
So
It's
I
a
just pulled up
positive
and
of the
parked.
neighborhood, you know, the negative would be you're on a main street, but there's always good parking.
Right, and you have behind it, so it's not,
Yes.
you have some room back there.
Yeah,
so.
they're all large lots where people tend to, on both sides of the road, people tend to stay in the rear.
And I do think that an inability to develop a property can constitute a hardship. I do think that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has said that.
Yes.
So, anyway, I have no further questions, Mr. Gallagher.
I just have a few, just to clear the record up a little bit. So you testified you've been a developer since you were 18 years old. How long has that been? Because I don't know how old you are.
Well, I'm 45, so.
Right. That's fine. And in the experience as a developer, you've built houses basically from the ground up.
Yes,
How many do you think you've done?
close to 1,000.
Okay, this probably is obvious then. You have the capital to build these houses?
Yes.
You have the equipment?
Yes,
Manpower?
we do, that's the positive of this, the lots here. And one of the ways we're able to get in here is we do all our own site work,
Mhm.
the demolition site work, et cetera. And I right now have several jobs 2 blocks away from this, so we're ready to mobilize immediately.
That's all I had on questions.
Mr. Rowe. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak with respect to this application?
I think we had a few last time, went before we delayed it, but it's hard to get out inside as well.
Anyway, with that, hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 17, Section 700.A, to allow use of dwellings as duplex residences with the same footprint and dwelling on properties located at 1234 Butler Pike, lots 1 and 2 in the C residential zoning district.
Well, we should have a vote on both, yeah.
If we should do it separate, do lot 1.
Do lot 1, okay. Well then, I move that we grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700.A, to allow the use of dwellings and duplex residents with the same footprint and dwelling at the property located at 1234 Butler Pike, Lot 1 in the C residential zoning district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's have a vote. Mr. Higgins,
I'm in favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
In favor.
Mr. Armando.
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Do we have a second motion?
I'll make the second motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700.A, to allow the use of dwelling as a duplex residence with the same footprint and dwelling on the property located at 1234 Butler Pike, Lot 2 in the C residential zoning district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's have a vote. Mr. Higgins,
In favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
In favor.
Mr. Armando.
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Next, thank you, and good luck. Next on the agenda is 1316 Butler Pike. Mr. Solicitor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Butler Pike Apartments.
We do recycle, so if you want to hand them back, I will have them recycled.
This is an application for variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article
tank
7,
place,
Section
I'm sorry,
700.8.
the auto tank place, now, he moved,
This
still
is
in
all-
Butler, but they moved where,
Hold on, we're off the record for a minute.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm
Trying
sorry.
to announce the case.
Yeah, we're trying.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. You're not going to be able
All
to hear me.
right. Yeah, she can't take two people speaking at the same time.
All right. So I'm just going to start over.
Yeah, start
This is
over.
Butler Pike Apartments LLC on application for variance from the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700.A. The variance requested is to legalize and use an existing dwelling as a triplex with the same footprint and dwelling. Property is located at 1316 Butler Pike in a C residential zoning district. And I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening again. Obviously, making a separate record, so Rob Lewis from Kathleen Stewart, representing Butler Pike Apartments, LLC. This being our second/third application for my clients this evening. I'm going to dispense a little bit with the history, spare you guys going back through that on the record. However, in this case, my clients are the legal owners of the property that's the subject of this hearing, 1316. They've owned the property now almost 3 years. And as with the prior application, I've handed to you some pre-marked exhibits, and I'll identify those for the record and then call Mr. Borkowski again to testify. Exhibit A1 being the deed to the property, vesting legal title in my clients. A2 being a series of photographs of the property. And this time I've included 3 photographs. One, again, an aerial image to give context and location of 1316 Butler Pike, and then 2 street view images showing the existing dwelling on the property. The next exhibit is Exhibit A3, and that's a copy of the application that brings us here this evening. That application does include an additional photo of the property, as well as a sketch plan showing how the dwelling lays out on the physical site of the property. Lastly, Exhibit A4, I have again included, and these are identical to the prior proceeding, but the letters of support from the various neighbors. You'll note that a number of them refer to 1234 Butler Pike, some refer to 1316 Butler Pike, and some refer generally to the Borkowskis as their neighbors and their quality of work in the community. So I think they're appropriate again here for 1316. Again, as with the prior applications, my clients here this evening are seeking a variance from 700A to permit the existing dwelling, which is 3,800 square feet. So you'll hear a little bit about that, about the building itself, and to convert that this time to a triplex or 3 dwelling units. As with the prior application, the request here does not seek in any way to expand that dwelling. As you'll hear, it is more than sufficient space, and it can be divided in a manner that makes sense to be 3 units. So it's simply a matter of doing that interior work to the building to convert it to the triplex. Again, as with the prior application, there is significant off-street parking available for this dwelling. You'll hear a little bit about that. And as we have already talked about, more than ample on-street parking to serve visitors and so forth for those units. So unless the board has anything for me on this application, I'll jump right into it with Mr. Borkowski.
Swear me.
He's previously sworn.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, so Mr. Borkowski, you were previously sworn, so you're still under oath. But for this record, can you provide your business address?
1301 Butler Pike.
And I know that we went through a couple of these questions with the prior applications, but technically being independent records, let me just ask you a couple of questions for this record. You are the principal or a principal of Butler Pike Apartments LLC, is that correct?
Correct.
And you testified previously that for about 27 years now, you have been a builder and developer of residential dwellings in the community.
That's it. Yes, thank you.
And am I also correct that you are a resident of the community? You live almost directly across the street from the property that's the subject of this hearing?
Yes,
And again, how long have you lived in that residence?
26 years.
And again, that makes you very familiar with the neighborhood, with the character of the neighborhood, and really also the progression of the neighborhood, where it may have been 26 years ago to where it is today.
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with the property located at 1316 Butler Pike?
Yes.
How long have you owned that property?
Right around COVID. 3
And if you know, how large is the existing dwelling on the property?
I'm sorry, I was thinking of property. The
Building.
The dwelling is around 3,800 square foot.
3,800 square foot, and currently that is configured as a single-family dwelling, correct?
Yes.
And feel free to describe.
Yeah. So it has been through the years prior to us chopped to where the basement is a unit, the first floor is a unit, and then the second and what is a loft would be a unit. But overall, definitely from the outside looking in, it looks like a 3,800 square foot.
And to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Single home.
But to the best of your knowledge, there was nothing lawful per se about how somebody else had reconfigured it.
Correct.
So we're not here this evening trying to make a case that it's a lawful non-conforming use, that you're simply trying to reconstitute, you're doing the right thing and asking for the zoning.
Correct.
Okay. And am I correct that the property actually has 2 driveways, one off of Butler Pike, but then one off of Aspen Court?
Yes.
Am I also correct that Aspen Court is actually the entrance to Plymouth Garden Apartments?
Yes.
So this property has a 3,800 square foot single-family dwelling, is immediately adjacent to 309 apartments.
Yes. And at 1320, our plot place joins the property.
So you own the property immediately adjacent, known as 1320 Butler Pike, and that's a 4-unit property. Okay. So can you describe, I think you started to, but can you describe to the board what it is that you would like to do with this property?
In simple terms, make it legal and make it self-supportive, as we've been using our other properties to make repairs and preserve, again, the look of the single-family home when you're driving up and down Butler Pike. We just like to use it legally for what it was hodgepodge for years before we were able to acquire it.
So this property is a little bit different. We talked a bit, I think, in some of the questions about access. Describe how access would occur, or how you envision access to those 3 independent units.
So Easiest to start from the ground, there is a walkout basement and rear parking. So the one unit would be in the basement. It's a one-bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, and a full bathroom. And that would be accessed from the very rear of the building, the back footprint, the back corner of the building, which is there now, nothing is changing. And then the next unit is the entire first floor, again, a one-bedroom, full bath, kitchen, living room, and that is accessed from the front off of Butler Pike. In this case, we do have, I believe it's 10 by 15, one main atrium, so to say, and then the next unit would be the second floor, which again would be a one-bedroom, same building, and that has its own door as well, which you go upstairs into that unit.
And that unit would also have the third floor loft space?
Yes, it's there, it would be more of a storage, but yes.
And being a 3,800 square foot dwelling now, each of those three units is still a pretty substantial size unit.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. And based on what you described, the exterior of the building, other than any improvements that you may make, is going to remain the same. You're not proposing to expand the building. You don't have to cut additional doorways. It will still have that single-family residential appearance from the street.
Correct.
Okay. In your opinion, would the proposed use as a three-dwelling unit still be consistent with the neighborhood?
Yes.
And that is because immediately next door, there's quadplex, to the rear, there's a large multifamily, so there's nothing that would make it necessarily stand out from the rest of the neighborhood. And parking, we discussed that in the prior applications. Describe how parking would occur on this property.
So in this case, and much like our quadplex to the right, it has its own driveway and apron off of Butler Pike, and it also has an entryway off of Aspen Court to the rear of the property, and we have a rear driveway as well. So plenty of off-street parking on Butler, and then if you want to say overflow. Another thing I'll add as far as our experience with our rentals there, in the quadplex, we obviously have 4 residents there, and we have, and this has been the trend even prior to us owning it, is you usually see one car there because we have the Conshohocken station, and then down off of North Lane, the Spring Mill station, and people do walk there. And again, we have one tenant with one vehicle, and everybody else. There's a bus stop right in front of my home that everybody utilizes.
So, Chuck, based on your experience and your knowledge of the neighborhood, given the size of its dwelling and location and so forth, do you believe that reconversion of that building to a single-family dwelling is really feasible and consistent with the surrounding neighborhood? And do you believe that the use that you're proposing here instead would be more consistent with the surrounding neighborhood?
I do.
Do you believe that if the board is inclined to grant your request for a variance to legalize how this building has been oriented, do you believe that that would be in any way detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare?
No.
And do you believe that that proposed use would in any way impair the use and enjoyment of adjoining properties?
No.
And as with the prior application, am I correct that you have discussed your proposed use of this property with your surrounding neighbors, and they generally are supportive of your proposal?
Yes, they do.
That's all I have for Mr. Volkowski.
Thank you. See if we have any questions from the board. Mr. Higgins?
No question.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that one of the people who supported the application is Rachel Landry at 1316 Butler. Which unit does she currently live in?
The first floor, level with Butler Pike.
Okay, she would presumably remain there?
Yes.
Okay. And has no issue with that, with this division, I guess it wouldn't affect her. What is where is the entrance to the upstairs unit? How's that going?
Again, off of, there's a porch, atrium, whatever it's That has its main door, which there's a key code there, which all the residents would have. And then you walk into that, and then on your left, there's a door into the first floor, and on your right, there's a door to the second floor.
Okay. And can the main driveway, like say off Butler Pike, directly accommodate two cars, say side by side, so we're gonna have like one for each?
It could, it is tight, in all honesty.
Okay.
But there's landscaping around it, there's a lot of landscaping around it. If you pruned back, you probably could.
Okay, but so as it stands now, the one tenant would probably, it has to occupy the driveway, another would have to occupy.
Well, it opens up into the rear, so it's more of an egress
Okay.
to come down in, and then it opens up.
Okay, okay, so it wouldn't be an issue though,
No.
for parking for any of those, no?
And again, we're well beyond, or well below, should we ever in the future, if it changes with electric cars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's, I think it's an 18,000 square foot lot,
Okay.
so we're well below the impervious in the building coverage.
Okay. Let's see. Do you anticipate any disruption to traffic on Butler through this refurbishment, or
No.
will be accomplished basically in C2? Okay.
I sincerely don't see, again, with our quadplex,
Yeah.
I don't envision all having cars.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, but it's the way it is.
Okay. I have no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Aprile.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of clarifying things. How many parking spots do you have off-street?
Off-street, depending on how you would orient in the driveway. I look at it as the rear behind the house.
Sure.
I believe we have 5 or 6 that you could utilize.
That could go in the back.
Yes.
So it sounds like plenty of parking, and you can expand it if you have to,
Yes.
right? How do you come through the side? Do you have an easement for that property next to you? Or is that your land?
I've never researched the deed that much. I couldn't speak
I
to
don't
it.
know how the driveway to Aspen Court came about. I didn't find anything in the title. All I could guess is that when the apartment complex was approved, they allowed them to cut in a driveway to Aspen Court, because I imagine Aspen Court is not a public road. I believe it's just an access drive. I don't have an answer, but it has been there historically.
But that driveway crosses over somebody else's property.
No.
He abuts Aspen Court. He
Oh, this
occupies the
property's
whole-
on the corner?
Yes, it does occupy the whole corner.
And for what it's worth, I
Look like
grew
we're
up
on it
behind
here.
Plymouth Gardens Apartments. And we used to cut through them, but that's been there for.
Then it doesn't matter.
Are you going to rehab the whole building?
The only thing that really needs is obviously like a kitchen, a sprucing of that. But it really, the exterior we've worked on with, was it Tristan?
Jack Fessler.
Yeah, so it was St. Tristan. He had inspected it a few times, and we've done things.
So the utilities are up to par?
Yeah, there's 3.
Boxes?
Yeah.
No more questions?
Mr. Armando?
So you guys own the quad next door as well? And is that officially zoned, the quad?
Yes.
So that, you
Yes.
bought it like that, or did you get it converted? Bought it as a quad? and it's already
That's
official?
been for her parents, actually. It was the first one.
Oh, yeah.
They live in one of the apartments.
So it seems like all the way down the street, this is happening. These,
Has happened.
I mean, there are no more families on Fayette Street. It's mostly going to be multi-unit places.
In this quadrant, I feel like.
Yeah, for the most part.
What do the 2 little signs say that are facing the other way? Are they like "Don't park from here to the corner" signs, or handicap parking?
So, yes, there's the hydrant, obviously, and the radius they put for when people are creeping out onto Butler Pike there.
So that they say no parking from here to the corner?
From forward, yes.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them say that?
I don't know, I can't honestly say what the ones near the driveway says,
Yeah, I just wanted
but the one near the corner definitely says no parking.
Okay.
And they just appeared with me.
And is there any reason why the guy living in the basement would need a key access to the front door? So just the 2 top people have that?
Yeah, well, it's a, I say e-treat, it's a key code.
Right.
That allows you in, but you're correct, no, they,
Because you can't go in the front and go down to the basement.
No.
The only way to get into the basement is through the back. That's it. No further questions. Thank you.
I think you answered my question, which was just basically how many parking spaces do you have off-street?
Yes.
So, 5 to 6. So I have no further questions. Mr. Gallagher?
I have no questions.
Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak with respect to this application?
If I may, Mr. Mattioni, Mr.
Yes.
Solicitor, just officially, if I can move applicants' exhibits A1 through A4 into the record, just so that's official.
Certainly, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hearing no public comment, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 7, Section 700, capital A, to legalize and use an existing dwelling as a triplex with the same footprint and dwelling at the property located at 1316 Butler Pike in a C residential zoning district.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second. Let's have a vote. Mr. Higgins?
in favor.
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Armando?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck, and
Thank you very much.
hopefully you can get going on that hole in the ground soon.